Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining this session. Today, we are going to discuss about the value of environmental data. I will bring a little bit the context of the session first, and then I will briefly introduce everyone, including myself. So today, as all we can fear that companies have been increasingly setting up ambitious environmental targets. And meanwhile, stakeholders and the public want to know, are those environmental targets achievable and beneficial, especially for producers? And how can we reach, and are we really meeting those environmental targets? And to answer those questions, we need data. Collecting data should be the beginning point of a sustainability strategy, not the end point. So in other words, that means what kind of data should companies collect and in which form to report? And what value is there in data? And how can we use partnership from different business to help that we're collecting data and report data in a way to help design and production? So today we are going to hear from experts discussing those issues. We have 3 online panelists. We have Lorraine, Managing Director from Wikiread. Wikiread is an open data platform, allows everyone to systematically analyze, gather, and share publicly the information on ESG practice. And then we have Margaret, Fairware Association Director on behalf of the Industry We Want. The Industry We Want is a multiple stakeholder initiative focusing on driving industry-wide approaches across garment and footwear sections, driving positive impact socially and environmentally. And then we have Joyce, Director of Collective Action Programs from Sustainable Apparel Coalition. And we have 2 on-site panelists. We have CitySec, Senior Energy Advisor from Mekong Sustainable Manufacturing Alliance. And we have another panelist from Pakistan. We have Saqib, from the head of sustainability from Sapphire Diamond Fabrics, which is a fast-growing business from Pakistan. So thanks to everyone for joining us in this session. Forgot to introduce myself. I'm Jessie Lee, your moderator of this session. I used to work in the garment industry in China. 5 years ago, I moved to Cambodia, working in a textile factory in Siem Reap. And 2 years ago, I co-founded a podcast called Manufactured with Kim van der Ring. I recommended you listen to the podcast, not because I co-founded, because the podcast focusing on bringing up suppliers' viewpoints, opinions, and perceptions to the surface. And today, I'm moderating the session, The Value of Environmental Data. I'm very excited now to start it. And thanks for GMAC and GIZ Fabric to kick off the session. So I have a question for Lauren. When you heard the topic, the value of environmental data, what's your and how do you understand the concept of value? Lauren, I think you are muted, right?
Of course, sorry, it's really early here. Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I was just saying that's an excellent question because, of course, you can interpret value in many different ways. I think, so from our perspective, when I read the question, what is the value of environmental data, is why is it worth collecting? And this brings me a little bit back to what is sustainability actually all about, right? And really what the idea behind it is that companies are no longer creating just value for shareholders or for company owners in terms of financial profits, but we're actually looking to create value for society. Are we having a positive impact on the environment, on local communities? Are we making the world a better place together, right? So this is the idea. And in that context, when we think about the value of environmental data, really the question is, how can we use that information and what information do we need to answer that question? Are we, in terms of the environment, having a positive impact? And that's really where the value is. Now, of course, there's a lot of questions to unpack there because it's also expensive to collect that data. And I think, the panel will come into those questions. So I don't want to kind of like get the grass away for everybody else's feet, which is a Dutch saying, and I don't know if that makes any sense in English, but I just want to make sure to say that that's also something we're of course very conscious of. And yet there's small steps we can take that are easy, that are going in the right direction. So yeah, I think there's a lot of different types of environmental data that we already know the answers to. Even for a small organization like ours, we're just about 9 people. I know what our energy use is. I know what our water use is. You know, there's little things like that that we can already start to just record and make available for others, which is the first steps, I think, to the bigger picture that is indeed very ambitious.
Thank you, Lauren. And I have another question for you. Knowing that WikiRead has a tagline said, let's make companies better together. So what is WikiRead's role in achieving that?
Yeah, so really from our perspective, the idea is that of course, we're looking at sustainability like creating value for society, right? And so if we want to understand that and know if that's possible, we need to involve more groups than just shareholders and companies themselves. We need to engage civil society. We need to engage worker rights groups. We need to engage local communities, consumers. And they need to be able to understand what is happening. What are the impacts of companies? And so from our perspective, it's like bringing all of these perspectives and voices together and saying, what do we understand to be a good company and how can we get there? And it's not about companies being kind of named and shamed. We're absolutely not a watchdog. It's really more about saying like, okay, well, what is the information that others have that actually helps me? So to make it very simple, if I told you I was nice, you might want to ask some other people if they agree. And what is their perspective on whether I'm nice or not? The same goes for sustainability. When a company tells me they're sustainable, that's a great first thing. And they might have different reasons and show why they believe they are sustainable. But I would still want to hear from other groups if they agree. And maybe they have other perspectives and insights that can help us to understand what still weaknesses are and where we can still improve. So that's really the together bit that we're hoping to achieve with making all of this data available for everyone for free to engage with.
Okay, great. We're going back to this together thing later, very quickly.
Yeah.
Now I just want to step back a little bit. And Margaret, could you help us to understand the context of this data work that we can understand better the size of the industry and how complicated the supply chain could be in terms of collecting data and reporting data? Oh, I think you are muted. Yeah. Rebecca? Oh, Margaret, I think you are muted. Yeah. Okay, don't worry. We will come back to you in a short while, very quickly. And talking about this topic, the value of environmental data, I'm going to ask the manufacturer, Sakib. Can you explain us why is environmental data so important to suppliers?
Yes, so hello. Well, environment data is very important because from last many decades, the exploration growth in a technology has dramatically changed our lifestyle because we are converting the nature resources into the product and then into the waste. So that is the challenges we are going to face. We are converting nature resources into the product and ultimately into the waste, and that is triggering the climate challenges, water scarcity, air pollutions. So these kind of challenges we are facing, and we need to understand by which is the main common area for where we have to get the data. So since we are the manufacturer, so we are focusing the area like the waste that we are generating in a hazardous waste, the effluent water, and the air emissions. So in this way, we are trying to identify. So these are the particular area to get the information, to also to set the KPIs for internally and also externally, to give the confidence to the stakeholders, to the brands, to the academia, to also the government officials. So that is why we are working on this, and this is how we are getting the information from them.
Thank you. And as a manufacturer, what are the challenges you face when collecting data? And are those challenges more regional or more universal for you?
Obviously, it's both sides, regional and also for the universal, because the first thing you have to change the mindset of your production team. You need to make them realize that this is very important if you are working with a global market. So in that case, if you are not going to meet this kind of things in future, you are not going to make any sustainable product. So you be in a global market, and to produce the global challenges, you have to go for the sustainable product. So the first challenge we have faced, and that was the management commitment. And the first, we have taken initiative to give the confidence to them. If we work in this way, we can also reduce the cost emission, we can also reduce the carbon emissions and the water reductions. So in this way, we are playing in the both sides. We also saving the nature resources, and we also working on a more sustainable product. And then obviously the challenges we are facing during the production process. So we need to collect the information. The information that we are going to collect in that way, we have to understand the production process first. So in the whole production process, you need to collect information real time. And like you need to know what chemical you are using, how much water you are consuming, how much air is being consumed over there. So these information, you need to get that. And for that, there are different kind of tools, and the devices are available. And we need to purchase that. And that was one of the challenge. You have to finance yourself. If a company is thinking sustainability is the expense, that would be a disaster for that company. Actually, sustainability is investment. If you're investing in this way, and you are going to have a more benefit in the end.
I'm quite sure many attendants online and on-site are eager to know more about your operational experiences in those data collecting and reporting. But now let's think about, I don't know if everyone heard about the recent Greenpeace report on Detox My Fashion campaign. This campaign lasted 10 years, and recently we released a new report talking about some very interesting changes. So saying that, Lauren, I think you once mentioned this report. Would you like to share with us your thoughts on this report?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting example because it was a really effective campaign. They did a lot of work to reduce water pollution, and they were really successful with that. But at the same time, when they later measured, they realized a lot of the pollution had migrated to air pollution. And so what for me is really important about this is to come at this issue as from a much more holistic perspective, right? If we just focus on these one incident or one issue in isolation, there's a chance we end up shifting the problem around rather than tackling it. And so really that broader perspective, I think, is stressed really well from this campaign, even though it's a very great example of how you can actually make improvements.
Okay, I think I heard a shifting problem. That's very interesting. It sounds very challenging for manufacturers when you have a shifting problem in your sustainability production. We will come back to this very quickly. Now I saw Margaret is online. So Margaret, would you like to help us to understand the context of the data work in garment industry, like the size of the industry and how complicated it is, how those plays in those work?
Yeah, thanks and good afternoon, and thanks for having me. Sorry for the blockage on my mute button, but happy that it works now. No, it's great to hear the introduction of the other colleagues already. I've heard several things, also what Lorraine said. In the end, it's not about the data, it's about the impact. And I think we should keep that in our perspectives, that we all want to reduce a negative impact on the environment. At least that's what we're talking about. And if you're talking about the whole industry, it's reducing negative impact on both the environmental side and the human rights and social impact side, of course. What I think is very important to keep in mind with everything we do is that this industry is so characterized by its fragmentation, multiple relations. It's a web of connections, brands having multiple suppliers, suppliers having multiple customers, and then all the stakeholders around it. Different relationships, and actually that contributes also to this really unequal power balance, and that is really blocking us and hindering us and in taking further steps. Just like Lorraine said, problems are shifted throughout the supply chain, and then in the end nobody makes the impact. We really need to make sure that we are getting ready to have this to make sure that we do this collective effort where everybody takes its own responsibility within the supply chain. And then maybe on the topic of information and data, you touched already upon the information that is relevant for everybody to understand what the claim on sustainability is. But I want to raise another issue, actually, that information and data is also very important for everyone in the supply chain to take their own responsibility on human rights and environmental due diligence. Because to be able to take your due diligence, that responsibility, you need to have information that allows you to be aware of the types of risks are related to your activities in the supply chain. And so the data needs to be actionable. It needs to give sufficient information on the type of risks. So that is maybe another type of information that you need, but is really relevant. And because of the fact that the industry is so fragmented, one of the calls I wanted to do, which is maybe a very obvious one, but a very important one, is to align and to harmonize. We need to have a common understanding on what the data means, on what we are measuring, on what we are informing about, to be able to understand from each other what kind of impact we want to show or what kind of direction we want to indicate. Aligning on data allows us to focus more. So if we work collectively, we will focus all on the same issues and we will have more impact as well. From what I understood also from the ILO report, that one of the hurdles also for some of the stakeholders, whether it are production locations or other stakeholders, that hinders them to take action is the lack of clarity on what is needed. And they need maybe some inspiration or an example set that they can follow. So that is also one of the visions, of course, behind the industry we wanted. We said, well, we actually have a common purpose. With all of us. So we've had multiple sessions within the industry. We want to say, well, there are actually three main pillars that we need to focus on to have impact. One of them is the commercial practices, one of them is the social side of it, and one of them is the environmental side. And within the environmental pillar, we try to, with all stakeholders together, to focus on some key areas. And what we now developed is a key indicator on greenhouse gas emissions. I'm sure Joyce will tell more about it, but having this one indicator in a dashboard and measuring it the coming years will hopefully have this effect to inspire others and to clarify what to focus on in order to have more impact.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you. I feel it's a very rich sharing. I don't know how you feel that. I feel I heard lots of keywords like asymmetrical power dynamics in government supply chain, like actionable data, how important you have actionable data to help you to reach your targets. And it's a collective work and so on. And all this, let's say, on a macro level to show us the value of environmental data. Now let's go down to the macro level to have Sakib. Would you like to give us more detailed picture about how do you communicate the data you collected with your local team? And based on the data you've collected, what have you achieved?
Yeah, sure.
Would you like to have...
Yes, I'm going to show some presentation here. If you allow me, can I?
Yes. So we are going to see a
first,
PowerPoint, right?
The first challenge we have faced the collection of data, because if you are going to set up some targets, you need to provide some information to the all stakeholders, especially the production team that's performing within the facility. So if you just
a second.
It's okay. So meanwhile, I'm just going to explain the information that going to provide to the stakeholder must be accurate, and the information you are going to disclose with the customer must be validated. So in that case, the first, if you can go to the first slide. Can I control this? Give me a second. Sorry, I think it's not visible to the whole screen. The first thing I'm going to, can you please put on a complete screen? So on the first slide, go to the first slide, the third one. I'm sorry, it's not visible to everyone, but let me explain what is it. So actually, this is the tools that we are going to use to collect the information. The first thing you need to understand, if you are going to get the real-time data, so that will be more appropriate to provide the information to the concerned stakeholder. SCADA system is available for getting the real-time data. So whenever you talk about the productions, you need to understand how much water is being consumed over there, how much chemical is being consumed over there, energy, and the water, and other things, like the airs. So this information you can collect through the tools, and which is one of the renowned technology which is currently available, which is SCADA. So sometime your production system or the production machines are not allowing to get the real-time data. So in that case, you have to go for the digital data loggers. You have to install digital data logger before the machines. And other thing, you have to go for the visual information. So these are the tools are available from where you can collect the information. Can you go to the next slides? So these are the picture of the tools that we have within the facility. Can you go? This is the SCADA system, real-time data collection. I'm sorry. And this tool getting the information through the data loggers? Yes, right. Can I use my mouse now? So here we have some flow meters for the collection of electricity, water, energy, and air informations. So once you have a data, nobody is going to accept the validation apart from the validations. If you are providing this information to your stakeholder or to your customer, they are not going to accept. So the validation from the third party is very important. So there are different kind of tools are available, like the Higg Index is one of them. So it is providing the information for the environment, energy, waste, water, chemicals. So these kind of information you can collect through these tools. And for the chemical, the Hive and Clean Chain are available for getting the green chemistry, and you can check the verification of your chemical that you are using within your facility. The last one, ChemCheck and InChecks, they're also providing the compliance for the chemical. The ClearStream is giving the information, the water you are being discharged. So a ClearStream is according to the standard of ZDSC. So once you have to comply this requirement, then you can able to ensure the compliance of this area. The next one is we have started working on a Higg Index tool. This is one of the example. Since 2018, we have gone for the first time. On the very left of the screen, you see the baseline progress, and that is 0 because that was the first year we have gone over there. And we have achieved 53 marks out of the 100, first year. We have provided this information to the all stakeholders. Then we have set up the targets. Next year, we have to improve. And next year, we improved 25%, just to giving the information to the first stage, to the whole production department and everyone. Next year, with the improvement of 37%, we have achieved 74 marks. And last year, we have achieved 80 marks with the improvement of 49%. And this is based on the information that we have provided to the all stakeholders. How we have achieved this? Once we have the information, and then we set the targets. And we are giving target to the all production department, like the energy resources. We have converted all conventional light into LEDs. We have added the sensor in the rooms, and also we have replaced other area. For the energy conservation, we have heat recovery, and we also gone for the other sources. For the water, which is very important, we have adopted the technology of 3R. 3R mean reduce, reuse, and recycle. So how we are going to reduce? We analyze the production optimization. We understand the area where water was being consumed too much. We have introduced a drop of water concept in the dying area. In the previous, we were using, for example, 1,000 liter. By adopting this technology and the methodology, we have reduced 99% water reduction in one process. So in the same case, when we go to the apparel side, we have adopted the new technology for the Tonello machine by adding the eFlow nanobubble technology. So by adopting this thing, we have reduced almost certain amount of the water. And in the next slide, this is some of the data that we are getting for the chemical compliance and the clear stream. And what we have achieved after that. We have achieved and reduced 37% water by adopting these technologies. And how we have done this, we have already explained it to you. So this is the comparison. So again, I'm going to emphasize the information, whatever you are going to explain or share with anyone, nobody going to accept your data. So this information is based on a HiggIndex verified module. And also this is verified by the Elevate. On the top, Elevate is a third party who is ensuring the information coming to your facility, also going to verify the information you are putting on the data, either is right or wrong. So after the confirmation, this is the accurate information. So we have reduced 37% as compared to the last year in water. And we also find out some alternatives to reduce the carbon emissions. In the start, we will only option to generate the coal, to generate the steam with the coal. But we have added the natural gas boiler. And by the adding natural gas boiler, you see on the left side of the column, we have reduced the coal consumption. So once you are reducing the coal consumption, you are reducing the carbon emission as well. And then we have added the natural gases and also the biomass we have added in 2021. Sometime you don't have a continuous supply of your natural gas, you have to go for the diesel as well. Same time, since we have a natural gas, we also are using the LPG over there. Ultimately, in absolute value, we have reduced 16% of carbon emissions. And these 60% are carbon emission by the using of alternative technology. Like we have gone for the solar, we have gone for the coal, we have gone for the natural gas resources, and we also go for some other technology that going to use. So absolute value was 16.9%. And here I'm going to explain one of the challenges. See, if your product is diversified, like we have a yarn, fabric, and we also have a garments. So in that case, we are calculating yarn into bags, fabric into the meters, garment into the pieces. So it will be difficult for you to understand and to standardize the thing. So what we learn from it, we have to set the all production data into kgs. So that's why normalized value, I would recommend to the all manufacturer, you have to work in this case. Normalized value will help you a lot. Because if you are forcing that you are going to enhance your production capacity, your number will be increased. Your water consumption will be increased, similar with the carbon emission and rest of the thing. But if you go for the normalized value, it can give you the real picture of your improvement. So in this case, in the previous slide, you have seen the absolute value. And this slide is showing the normalized value with respect to the kgs. So in this case, we have reduced 18% of carbon emission by using some of this kind of technology. So for the validation, there are different kind of certification and tools are available. You can also use that. As we have the next slide. Now we are going for the Alliance Watershed Stewardship Program, and we also going to add 4.2 megawatt of solar panel, water reduction for the 50% by end of this year by adding the recycling plant over there. And then we are targeting to reduce 50% more carbon emissions as compared to the previous year by adding this solar panel. We have also going to introduce the apparel village for the LEED certified platinum building, which is more environmental friendly. That's all from my side. If you have a question, I already have that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sakib. And for everyone here and everyone online, a quick tip. If your company, your business, or you have capacity and interest in vertical integration, take the chance to ask questions to Sakib. He would be the perfect speaker today to explain everything about vertical integration. And for SMEs, we are going to discuss very shortly how SMEs could be included in those data work and how to build value out from that. And now I would like to invite Joyce to share with us some interesting thoughts about changes. So Joyce, what are the most important changes in the types of environmental data over the past few decades? And how has this area evolved?
Yeah. Hi, Jesse. Hi, everybody on the floor. Nice to meet everybody there. So Joyce here. I am the Director of Collective Action from Sustainable Apparel Coalition. So I've been, working in this industry for over 20 years. So what I've seen is, in the beginning, 20 years ago, a lot of brands are asking, manufacturers to do an environmental audit or social compliance audit. The data points collected were mainly focusing on compliance issues. So are you complying with the legal legislation, right? So do you have a wastewater permit? So it's very basic, right? So at the beginning, I would say, brands and international retailers are sending their auditors or third-party auditors to do all the audits on site. And there's I think there's a lot of duplication of work in the same factory. So I've been hearing from a lot of suppliers, right? So the auditors are coming, several times a week or several times a month. So this makes the process not very efficient. So I actually think that, how the questions are being asked by different brands are also very different, and how the data is collected and, based on their own proprietary tools. So you can imagine, right? So I have 50 customers coming, manufacturing products from my site. I have to face at least 50 audits, right? Not to look into the following up audit or other main issues audit. So there's actually a lot of burden from the supplier side. So what happened was 10 years ago, the SAC, the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, we together with the industry stakeholders, SAC members, manufacturers, brands, industry stakeholders, academics, governments, we work together on a harmonized and standardized tools called the Higg Index, which Sakib already mentioned it in very, very detail. So congratulations on showing us how you use the Higg Index and how you perform, and congratulations on showing how the Higg Index has improved your performance, right? So how the data actually drive actions. So Lorena has also mentioned in the beginning, driving positive impact is very much our common purpose, right? Margrit as well, right? We are actually, moving towards the right direction, we have the right purpose and direction to drive these efforts. So I would say the SAC has launched the Higg facility environmental module to help each facility to measure 7 impact areas. Sakib has already mentioned in the last 20 minutes, how you measure water consumption, air pollution, how you use chemicals. It's very important actually to have baseline data to know exactly, how you perform, right? And then you can try to improve from the baseline. So I think standardization of data and standardization of questions are really, really important in how we collect the data, and also, consistently, right, analyze using the same accurate, verifiable data, either by, third party or second party. It's important, the accuracy of the data, and to drive action and decision making. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you. I think from Margaret, we heard a harmonized way of data collection, and from Joyce, we heard the standardized way of collecting and reporting data, which is very important. And that led to a fact that data work is a collective work. So about that, Lauren, would you like to share with us the general state of environmental data collection today, and what changes do you think companies are going to see over the coming 5 to 10 years? And I'm sorry to that, but I'm a bit concerned about time. So
Yeah, I think we all are, to be honest. Yeah, so I think, first of all, what we're seeing mostly right now in the public space, right, there's, of course, a lot more data that I think is in proprietary places. But in the public space, what we can actually all see, we mostly see environmental data like policies, commitments, pledges, targets, but there's actually very little of the evidence that we're going in the right direction. And so that is one big piece that's missing, and that we'll see an increasing pressure starting to build for organizations to make that kind of information available. If you set a target, are you going in the right direction? Where are you in terms of the projection of reaching that target? Do you need to adjust targets? These kinds of things. And what is really, I think, an important point to cover today is the European legislation that's coming. It's in the EU, but it's absolutely going to affect other places in the world. And so to pay attention to that development, I think is really critical for suppliers, also in the apparel sector. So in the EU, they're expecting that 50,000 companies will be covered by this law, but they will need to start reporting on their supply chains. And those are the ones that go all over the place, right? So I think one of the things there that we're seeing is what is helpful is that we're getting a very clear indication of what information needs to be collected, how it needs to be collected. And then that is actually really a template also for suppliers to start to have these kind of common definitions of how to calculate a particular number or how to define a particular issue, right? So an issue that is relatively new in environmental data is biodiversity. How do you define it? How do you measure that? And that, again, for me, stresses the point of bringing in other stakeholders. Don't just work in your own little silo. There's a lot you can do in your own silo, but there's a whole lot more you can do when you reach out to other stakeholders. For instance, working with academia, can they help you do a study in your area of the biodiversity around your facility? And is that improving as you start to change things in your production process, or is it actually getting worse? These kinds of questions, you can get a lot of help. There's a lot of interest on these issues. So don't be kind of afraid or shy. Really reach out to these kinds of groups to help you. I would say I will leave it at that because there's so many more things to say. Oh, are we still in the session? I'm not sure.
I think they will be back.
Yeah.
I hope.
Hopefully. Yeah. Right.
okay, we are back. Great.
Great.
Yeah, it's thank you, Lauren, for pointing out everything. Like, clock is ticking, time is running out. Now let's hit the practical points. So we have CITISEC from Mekong Mekong Sustainable Manufacturing Alliance, and I would like to ask you if you want to share with us that what kind of role data is playing in terms of helping suppliers, especially SMEs, to face their challenges. You see today, suppliers, especially SMEs, having two challenges at once. One is they are urged by reaching the environmental targets. The other one is the difficulty of finance access to underwrite their environmental projects.
Yeah.
So what kind of role data is playing?
Okay, thank you. I might share you on our program wheel, which we found with the factory on ground. Well, it's very challenge for them. I mean, I will back a little bit on many years ago that we are starting measures like wastewater quality, how to say, like the NOx and SOx in boilers. There are a lot of like measures to measures the quality or the number of the quality of the environmental issue. But nowadays, they have a lot of challenge in terms of the greenhouse gas emissions, which they have a lot of and complicated more than the physical environmental data. Like I said, like for the wastewater, like COD, BOD, right? And then the boiler, you can plug in and ask the read on the machines and measurements, but greenhouse gas cannot. So that's very challenge for the company, for the factory, particularly in these regions. Because as our team working with the factory, we found that there are a lot of like SME factory here in Cambodia and Vietnam. So they lack of the resource, human resource to understand what the greenhouse gas emissions is, and also what to calculate and what exactly impact to them. And then in our program, so we see the gap and we support them on training. So the data collection is one of our considering in the greenhouse gas emissions calculation training. Exactly, you guys may know that greenhouse gas emissions calculations or protocols. There are a lot of protocol, right? but which protocol that the factory have to align with? This is the first questions that our team and factory ask us. So then we back to their global brand or their client who it is. And we track back to that brand is in the UNFCCC Fashion Charter for Climate Action, which mentions two protocol for the greenhouse gas emissions calculations and footprint. The first one is Science-Based Target Initiative, and as another one is GPC. So we start with that. You see, just start it how it's complicated, because if you don't know like what gonna be start, there are a lot of the protocols in the website, in the Google, in the things. A lot of like international agencies try to promote and approach their methodologies and the things. So what it is, yeah? And then when we go to the details of that protocol, the data collections is suggest that how they correct the data, what kind of the data. For example, we found that one factory that we work with, when we ask, they correct the data. The electricity data is very simple. Every factory has to be record and like correct it. But they correct in terms of the currency, in terms of the money, not kilowatt hour. It means that you cannot use this type of data to calculate the greenhouse gas emissions from the electricity, right? So that's the very challenge for the company, even the big company in this area. So they need more training. They need more support on understand of the data collection. Some data collection is not related with their activity. So how they get the data? So that's what I can see that very challenge on that.
Can I understand that data collection and reporting here is really the foundation of all the sustainable production? It's the foundation of everything here.
Yeah.
And it's also the guarantee of that if you can reach your environmental target or not.
Yeah.
So, and you mentioned they do need the support and the resources. In that case, what can MSMA provide to them?
Thank you for the question. So for the MSMA, we provide the technical assistance. So firstly, we provided training, which consists of the climate change pillar, energy efficiency pillar, renewable energy pillar. So three pillars related to the greenhouse gas emissions. The second one, we provide the technical assistance, which is support the factory to create their net zero pathway emission, which this is another thing that they can use to communicate with their client, that they have planned to get net zero emission by 2050, for example. It depends on the client. And the last one, we provide some financial support for demonstration project to the factory as well. And this program is grant program, so no any penalty, no any simple word. Is kind of like just support it. No any penalty, no commitment, but they have to share their experience and barrier for us to share to the author as well.
It's yeah, thank you, Stisek. Thank you for a help without penalty and without commitment. I think lots of people were eager to know.
Yeah, one more thing that I found that the data collection is costly, right? It's very costly when you talk to the SME. They may not have any financial support. This is one of we can find in our project. So we are considering to ship that demonstration project to the monitoring data machine, something like that. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think we will come back to you again shortly for more support and resources you can provide. And now I would like to throw the question to Joyce. A similar question is that in terms of data collection and reporting, in your idea, what could MSE do to gain support from brands and retailers?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, I think I would say the first point is SME is definitely a super important stakeholders, right? They are super important to collect environmental data because they are basically a large part of our industry sector. We need to get them on board. And with the SAC, I would say they can start working on a number of issues. I would say energy, for example, CTSEC already mentioned, energy is quite important in terms of climate change because of the urgency. And, a lot of countries are either they rain a lot, you get a lot of flooding, or you have heat waves, right, everywhere across the world. I think climate change would be one of the issues that they could tackle first. And SAC actually provide, HIC training to be able to understand how HIC works. It's the HIC platform is actually an online platform where you can look into 7 impact areas. You can start with the energy, how much consumption, energy consumption are you using, how much you are using from the grid. So you can actually get free training, even online training or training provided by local providers in the countries by local language. So you don't have any language barrier. So we provide a lot of, HIC training to understand how to use the tool, what's the definition. Our how to HIC manual is a howtohic.org. You can go into it and it tells you every single definition of, environmental impact, water impact, what does it mean? How do you collect your water volume of water that you're using? How much discharge wastewater you are actually discharging? So I would recommend an SME to look at the howtohic.org, which is a guideline, which is free and it's online, and using the harmonized and consistent tool to collect environmental data, where you can share all the data to your customer. You don't need to actually, fill in the HIC index multiple times. You only fill in once a year, and then you can share with multiple customers. Another thing I would recommend would be to, have frequent dialogue, right? So Laureen also actually mentioned about having conversations with different stakeholders, and also having dialogue with brands and your customers. What resources they could actually provide to you as to you as a company, as an SME. Frequently, a lot of brands and stakeholders are providing a lot of free HIX training. The environmental measurement training, where how you can record your environmental data, how you can analyze it, how you can create an action plan based on collecting the data, right? We all actually agree that collecting data is only one part, but I think using the data, analyzing the data, and take action and result in reduction of environmental impact and also improving workers' life is actually our primary objective.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you. Yeah, and
thanks,
now I'd like to ask Margaret, and since Joyce talking about that, what kind of help SME can gain from their brands, and now as we all know that the industry we want is actually a connector of brands, factories, and workers. So the question is, how can we bring them together, knowing most of the time brands, factories, and workers are from different cultures and regions? How can we bring them together to speak the same language and make the target beneficial for everyone?
Yeah, thanks. That is a great question. And I think we have mentioned before also in this session that it should be a collective effort. And therefore, dialogue, of course, is key. But maybe just before that, even I want to emphasize once more, we're talking about the difficulties and also for smaller enterprises to take part in this data collection activity. But I really want to stress that they need to be on board, because what I said in the beginning, that the industry is so fragmented. Even if we had the 10 biggest brands, we still have a very tiny percentage of the industry, and we will never have the impact that we are looking for. So we need the SMEs as well. Also in relation to, I think it was Laureen referring to the EU directive, that brands have a responsibility to do their environmental due diligence as well. We need the SMEs also there on board, and it's possible. Also, we've seen examples enough of brands to do so, and I think that is one thing. Show these examples, highlight them, and let them inspire others to move along. And maybe just one more thing to mention about this dialogue, because to come back to the beginning to what I said on this power imbalances, I still feel that really hinders us in taking steps. And we really need to make sure supplier voices are better heard within the industry, worker voices are better heard. So if including supplier voices better, I'm actually talking about engaging in a new type of sourcing dialogue, I would even say. We talk a lot about social dialogue, but also the dialogue between the brands and the suppliers is very important. Make sure that you make it a collective effort. What kind of data do you want to have, and discuss together to know about the impact and to know about the risks that you have. So make sure that you are connecting with each other in this kind of sourcing dialogue to make sure that both the supplier can provide data, but also the brand can adapt its purchasing practices to help also not only financially with collecting the data, but also with reducing the impact they have. So engaging is I think, a key as well in this topic.
Thank you, Margaret, about engaging and empower the suppliers. And now we go back to suppliers again. So, CITISEC, would you like to bring us to future that we know MSA Mekong Sustainable Manufacturing Alliance program will end in 2023. So what would you hope to see? What has happened already by when it ends? Would you like to share with us?
Yeah, that would be our key target for the outcome after the project is finished. Unfortunately, our program is going to be done by September 2023 next year. We have just only 1 year left. So we try to look at the outcome that the health factory sustainable. Like I mentioned that for the as technical assistant, we we didn't do only like carbon footprint for the factory. We didn't do any as only the energy audit for the factory, but we try to create the net zero pathway for them, so they understand that what their situations and what their plan to go to reach the target and align with the their client. That's a long-term initiative for them, and this is also the good for the benefit for them as well to communicate with their brand or their client, which already commit to be the net zero emissions at the UNFCCC charter. For example, like Nike, they want to be the net zero emissions by 2050. But what their supplier can do, no one can answer. So why we try to produce the outcome before our end of our program to use for the factory to continue their investment, their work in to reach the net zero emission. So we are discussed with the factory and also the brand, and then very interesting on this idea. So I think this is one of long-term strategy for the factory, and to make the brand confident that they will get the target on time, right? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, CitySec, about the future sharing. Yeah. Today we have been talking a lot. I'm considering of the time. So today we have been talking a lot about the data collection and reporting work, the changes in the past, how it evolved, and looking into future, and how we can empower suppliers and so on, especially the meaningful practice from manufacturer and the 3 pillars support from MSMA. Yes. And yes, Sakib, you want to share something more?
I just want closing remarks here. The first thing is for SMEs, for everyone. They have the first challenge to collect the information and data, which is a very challenging part. Once they have this information, then I would thank to Joyce and the SAC team for making our life so easier to providing for the Higg Index tool. And that is a wonderful tool for us, for everyone, to make them understand. You shouldn't go for the first time for the validation, the verification, but that can also help you to understand where you are at the moment and where you have to go. So my suggestion for everyone, for the new manufacturer, they have to go for the Higg Index. It is one of the best tools, according to my experience, because I'm working from last 8 years with them. And then I also recommend to everyone. So it's going to set up the things step by step. You can improve yourself. And it's also acceptable for the brand. And that is good for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Sakib. Now let's move on the Q&A session. So 49, is there any questions, interesting questions from our online? Okay. We will hold on a little bit. Anyone wants to have any questions here? Oh, yes. Okay. You'd like to introduce yourself?
Hi, John Leung, CDP. We're the global environmental disclosure platform, mainly for large corporates, although we do have an SME framework questionnaire coming out soon. I just want to know what kind of disclosure, I just want to know what kind of disclosure platforms you use at the moment, or what kind of questionnaires you use.
We are using Higg Index tool at the moment. So why we are using Higg Index? Because it's providing the all sustainable solution at the one platform. And that platform is also help to analyze yourself with your peer, with your factories, and also with the brand. So this tool also providing the information, the analysis that you're doing within your facility, and you can also analyze information with them. So that is the tool currently we are using, which is acceptable internally and externally for everyone.
Is it TCFD aligned?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Anyone have any questions? Yes.
A question and a remark. My name is Arjen Laan from Pactix, manufacturer. Yeah, there's I hear lots of important things and dialogue and so on. But I think one of the challenges is how to start a good dialogue with brands, because brands will react very, very differently. You cannot say the brand will do this or the brand will do that. I have conversations with brands who basically push everything to you, say, you sort it out. This is an obligation from the European Union, and you just make sure you do it, and you absorb the cost as they will. And there are, of course, brands that say, oh yes, this is important. How can we do that? That is, so with those brands, you will have a dialogue. It's the problem, let's say, with the big brands, and these are the biggest brands. I'm not talking about the small ones, but the biggest brands who basically push that responsibility down. That's one. And then the focus is totally on manufacturing, while the total supply chain, including flying goods in and out, is huge. In the market we are in, it's about 50% of the total cost. So is that going to be addressed as well? Because I'm so much afraid again that somebody's got to pay for the transition. And I'm also afraid that it is the manufacturer and not so much the brand. Your views, please.
I'm 100%.
Sorry, this question is specifically for. Okay, Saqib, you go first,
I'm
and Lauren,
100
I noticed. I will come back to you later. Yeah.
I'm 100% agree with you. So everything is on our shoulder. And so if you want to stay in a market, you have to do this kind of a legislation requirement. You have to fulfill all these things. And the second thing, if you are working on this area, we do not have any other options. Brand is imposing everything on us. Sometimes they are saying we are the business partner, but on the same side, we are the responsible. And at the time of delivering something, they are putting everything on the other side. And the second thing, we have to definitely we have to start working on this, like the life cycle assessment. Since we are working to understand the carbon footprint of a product, we need to establish our supply chain. We have to start giving some awareness to the supply chain. We have some kind of a data, whatever they're doing. Yes, since we are producing some of the manufacturing of apparel divisions, there are lots of supply chain is being involved in your business. So we are still facing. We are unable to get the information from them. And the point is, if we are not going to develop the future according to the requirement of the legislation and also the EU standard, so we are not going to have a business with them. So in any case, we are at the moment, no, we do not have a such support from the supplier, but we need to train them. We need to give some awareness by providing some platform or some other kind of things. We have to do this in any case.
Thank you. And
I answer you relative what the MSMA that have been done in Vietnam. We are the middle persons to discuss and negotiate between the factory and brand. We bring them together in the round table, raise the problem, and ask brand how they can support them. Successfully, one of the projects we have, we do the we call the coal phase out, because the brand need to phase out of the coal in their supply chain by 2025. And then, as you mentioned, the factory have no idea because that where the biomass was the biomass type of that they can use for the existing boiler, for example. So then the global brand knows about this one, and then we compromise these two sides, and then finally we work together, and then now we are on the progress on the biomass mapping for the supplier of the big band, 3 big band together. Yeah, this is what the MSMA, because we saw the same thing that you mentioned. Only one factory cannot negotiate and talk with them. Yeah, that's what we.
thank you. And Lauren, thanks for your patience. Yeah, do you want to share something quickly?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think I can't take your worries away. I think I can only confirm your worries. As Margreet was saying, there is this power dynamic, and brands will absolutely push the responsibilities to manufacturers. There's no two ways about that. There will be, because of the EU law and how it's structured, brands will be vulnerable to civic litigation if they don't do their due diligence. And so they will only want to work with suppliers that are able to provide them this information and ensure that they are not vulnerable in that way. And so it becomes almost an advertising tool for you. If you do your sustainability, then brands will want to work with you. At the same time, I think there is something like you have a tool in your toolbox too. And I would say here your allies really are the industry initiatives like MSMA is just explaining, but also civil society, right? How can we put pressure on brands to not only make it your responsibility, but to also take their responsibility? They all need the same information from all of their suppliers. So there is so much room for collaboration that there is definitely a way to put pressure and to ensure that brands are investing in the tools that you need to develop and the systems you need to set up. So yeah, I would say don't forget to put up a fight. It's worth doing that and find your allies in that. But you are indeed going, like realistically speaking, you are going to see a lot of pressure from brands on suppliers.
Thank you, Lorraine, and thanks to everyone for joining the session. Thanks for our online panelists and on-site panelists to input into such a rich and detailed discussing with everyone. Now the session is officially end. So for the on-site participants, we are going to move to the ballroom to have a networking. And thank you again for everyone that's joining us for the discussing. Thank you.